This clip is brought to you by VegasWinners.com. Get expert sports betting advice from some of the best handicappers in the world. Head on over to VegasWinners.com and win yourself some money.
Let's also talk about Madison Square Garden. You're in the ring on October 14th, which is the WWF's return to New York City since 9/11. And you make notice to the NYPD, the NYFD, and the emergency service personnel in the crowd. Man, this had to be a moment that you remember to this day.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And at least I don't think I screwed up the names. I think I got NYPD right. And NYFD right. Yeah, it was special, Conrad. In all seriousness, it was quite an honor to be in the ring at the Garden. Being in the ring at the Garden to do an interview or anything for a broadcaster, big business. That's a big deal. And I can understand why the wrestlers who get booked and wrestle in the Madison Square Garden are always so jacked about it. It's the Mecca. You've arrived. You have arrived, and now what are you going to do about it? So it was a special time. And as you said earlier in the show, 9/11 was just still kind of half-assed in our rearview mirror. And you're back in the city where it all happened. And it was a unique experience. Yeah. And a special one for me, no doubt. I was very blessed to have that opportunity.
So I want to touch on what Dave Meltzer wrote about this show. There used to be a saying that how the Garden goes, so goes the wrestling business. It's probably just a saying, more because the perception of what is hot and isn't is often based around New York as the media center. So it's probably closer to the perception than the reality of wrestling. But with that, many can point to not just the Madison Square Garden sellout streak ending with the October 14th show, but ending on a show headlined by Rock versus Austin in a unification match as one of the most telling signs that the boom period is over. I want to make sure everybody is following along here. This is October of 2001, and the streak of sellouts at MSG ends. But it's what, 6 weeks, 5 weeks after 9/11? Do you think that had anything to do with it? I know that sounds silly. What would you attribute a non-sellout in Madison Square Garden, your home arena, for Austin Rock with?
Well, first of all, I booked that card, and I thought Austin versus Rock was a pretty good main event.
Yeah.
And the last thing I thought was, is it going to sell out or not? I thought we'll add another one to the streak. But something outside, some outside interests, in my opinion, Conrad, like 9/11, affected the card, affected the attendance, affected people coming downtown. It just did. Now, the house wasn't a disaster by any stretch. It was still a hell of a house. But I think something along the lines of what you're describing, so that black cloud was still hanging over our heads a little bit. I do believe that, because I'm not going to, I will do it. If I believed it, I would do it. But I thought I booked a good card. And I thought Rock versus Austin was strong as dirt. So I think there's other outside forces at stake. Instead of saying, well, it wasn't a very good main event. I can't agree with that one. But in the old promoters would say it didn't draw because you didn't have what they wanted to see. Period. So I'll fall back on that sword. Apparently we didn't have what they wanted to see, but I do think the overriding reason was maybe some were still a little bit edgy, because that's all they were hearing on the news, 9/11. And are there more terrorists and all this stuff? And that's New York City's New York City. So I don't know, buddy. I think there are several forces in play here, but I don't think the main event had anything to do with it. It has as much to do with it as it normally would.
The show is also promoted as the return of The Rock to Madison Square Garden. It's his first date there since January of 2001. So in hindsight, we knew that maybe the boom of wrestling that we were riding was going to take a hit when ECW goes down. It's going to take a hit when WCW goes down, even if they weren't the market leader or industry leader that WWF was, still, with less competition, that's going to hurt the business. And a lot of people thought, well, the invasion angle, we can just recreate it. It had not gone as swimmingly as we would have hoped. And candidly, the whole Austin turning heel thing, there's a combination of things here that have led us to where we are. Is that fair to say?
Yes, absolutely fair. And I think it's spot on, quite frankly. A lot of changes in the landscape. People say, well, I don't understand with this competition thing. Well, the more wrestling shows that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe this is real, but we not only got a handicapper, but we got the best ever. So I got to ask, how are you so good at handicapping these games? I mean, 4-0, that's quite a streak already.
Well, let's talk about every pick I've given this year in the NFL as an example. 23-8. Every pick I've given this year. 4 weeks in the bag, 23-8. There's nobody in the country that can match what I do, but I always make sure, because anybody, Conrad, could make up anything. They could tell you and blow smoke and tell you, oh, I'm the greatest. But I am independently monitored and documented, so nobody could ever question what I say and go, I don't believe it. I send every pick to an independent monitoring and documentation service that has to get the pick before the game goes off and then publishes it after the game goes off so anybody could see what I gave. And those picks for the year, every NFL pick so far, 23-8. And I think it's because I do more homework than anybody else. The average guy or gal watching this podcast, they don't have time. They have a career, they have jobs. They might read the newspaper or go online and see something, but they don't have time 80 hours a week to study the games. That's what I do. And I have a crew of guys behind me, my consultants, who every week we get together 3 times a week and they throw their ideas at me. I throw my ideas at them.
Let's talk about another big story in the Observer at the time that, man, people are still talking about now. The big story in the Observer the same week is about how the WWF was losing fans over 30. Now, this is 20 years ago. And these days, everybody talks about the demo, whether it's 1834 or 1849. There's been a ton of talk, especially in the last 18 months or so, about ratings in the demo. Once upon a time, all we cared about was the number. Eventually, we stopped talking about the number and we started talking about the number of homes. And now we've even changed it to where it's the number of people in the homes, whatever we can do to make these numbers sound better and better. And so now we get sort of armchair quarterbacks online who say, well, yeah, they may have had more total viewers, but we had more in the demo.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of talk that for whatever reason, the WWE product is now attracting older viewers. I saw an NXT report a few weeks back that said the average age of a viewer of NXT 2.0 was 62 years old. That didn't seem right to me. Right. For years, we have heard that the WWE's average age for a viewer is in their 50s. And when I was a kid, man, it felt like every kid I knew was watching Hulkamania. We were all little Hulkamaniacs, and we had the lunch boxes and the posters and the action figures. And it felt like the product was more towards children, whereas the NWA had the adult product. Do you think that the WWF audience has grown up with the product and now we're just that same age, or has it changed its aim? It feels like the 80s was kids, the 90s were the adolescents and young men, the testosterone suck it era, if you will. And now it feels as if it's a little older. What do you make of the demographic of a WWE viewer and how it's changed over the years?
Well, I can tell you that my experience at the New York Comic Con answered a lot of those questions.
Okay.
And I saw so many fans came by the booth to see the King and I, and we had endless lines. It was really good. But they would say, I've been watching you guys since I was 8. That means, or whatever, a young age, 8, 10, maybe even younger. And that tells me that they were watching WWE programming, because they weren't going to see Lawler and I on anything but WWE programming. So that says that they grew up with the WWE. I think what the WWE's booking is just gotten a little stale. They're trying desperately, as you see on NXT and so forth, to get younger. But You know, I think Big E's not a young pup, but he's a new face in that role. And so I think that's what they're trying to do. But it's like starting the race a little bit late in the game. It's going to take a little while to catch up in developing young stars. And I've said this a million times on the show, ad nauseum. Wrestling fans love new. They love surprises. They love things that they can't call. So, and I believe that to this very day, no matter what their age is, they like surprises. You know, oh man, look at that! I didn't know they were going to do that. So, I think that they grew up with the WWE. Now they're getting a little bit older, but you know, the guys tell me, a lot of the fans tell me, well, I was a WWE guy all my life. I still watch sometimes, but now I'm an AEW guy. Now they may be saying that just because they're standing in front of me, and I'm sitting there with a AEW shirt on or something.
Right.
You know, I get that too. But our product is fresher because even though, well, they've seen Adam Cole, they've seen, but they haven't seen him in this environment.
That's right.
They haven't seen Adam Cole against CM Punk yet, or Bryan Danielson yet. And all these matches are there at Tony Khan's disposal when he wants to use them. So Tony's done a great job of getting these talents who are not necessarily young, but they're new and they're fresh. And therefore their marriages, i.e. their matches with various and sundry others, is going to be fresh. So I think that's kind of where we are right now. And Tony did a good job of signing these dudes that all can work. And they can work with each other. They can work as a team. They can.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.